Coming up on the Valor Flight Crew podcast, we team up with our friend Jack Schonely from the Hangar Z Podcast as we sit down with Woody McClendon and have an open, candid discussion about a topic in aviation that often goes unseen: fatigue.
We don't get a good night's sleep. We are fighting with our spouse. Our kids were playing all day long and kept us up. The dog wouldn't stop barking throughout the day. Whatever this may be, right? Like there's all of these external factors, or maybe we had a really busy weekend because we had to go to all these kids' events. Whatever it may be, we show up to work thinking we're in this good headspace, that we got enough sleep, or we know for a fact we probably didn't, and we're just banking on the fact that, you know what, it's okay, I only got 3 hours of sleep. I'm going to be able to nap when I get to work, right? Like, and I think that we trick ourselves on this daily basis of thinking that we're not really as tired as what we actually are. And we come up with every excuse of why we can do it, but we refuse to think of a reason why we shouldn't.
Welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Plus. Today's episode is a special collaboration with our friends at the Hangar Z Podcast as we tackle one of the most significant threats in aviation safety: fatigue. Joining us is Hangar Z host Jack Schonely and veteran HEMS pilot Woody McClendon. Together, we discuss how fatigue impacts our decision-making, our situational awareness, crew performance, and safety, all while sharing real-world lessons learned from decades in aviation. So sit back, settle in, as the conversation starts now. Thank you to our sponsors, Airbus, Copter Safety, and Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast, produced in partnership with Echo, Every Coast Helicopter Operations. The Valor Flight Crew podcast promotes the personnel and life-saving equipment behind helicopter air ambulance services. Join hosts Mike Fideli and Blake Schreider for in-depth interviews and expert insights from air medical personnel, pilots, communication specialists, and maintenance crews who play critical roles in airborne emergency response.
Line 1 accepting.
Copy, Line 1, gotcha, accepting. You're going to be talking to Red Feather 1 on LCEMS.
Welcome to a special collaboration podcast with the Hangar Z Podcast and the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast, partnered with Vertical Valor Plus, and also partnered with Echo, Every Coast Helicopter Operations. I'm your host, Jack Schonely, but we're going to also have a couple other hosts involved in this because of this collaboration. And that's from the Valor Flight Crew podcast, Mike Fideli. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jack?
Great. And Blake Schreider. Blake, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good, sir. How about you?
Very good. The three of us are going to kind of try host this on this topic that we're going to cover. And we asked
I don't know if we
someone
can live up to you, Jack.
you've already surpassed
No.
me in so many ways, Mike. I mean, the radio, the FM voice, you got me beat, dude. We were talking about that. We're going to have Mike do a sleep app, and he's going to say, "Hi, I'm Mike Fideli, and I'm going to count sheep for you. 1, 2."
I would buy that app in a heartbeat. I just want you to know.
Me too. Me too.
Blake,
I want a
Blake, you don't get
percentage.
to listen to me enough.
But to help us in this conversation, we wanted somebody who's been there, done that in many ways. And we invited Woody McClendon to join us. Woody, welcome to Hangar Z and the Vertical Flight Crew podcast. It's hard for me to say because I'm not used to saying it.
It's on the
Woody,
sign right
welcome.
behind me.
I know. I'll look at that. How's it going, Woody?
It's just great. I've been looking forward to this now for a while. What a great group to get together and share a topic that we're all very passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's why we asked you, Woody. I mean, you've got a lot of experience, and we're going to get to that. Woody's going to have an opportunity to introduce himself to all of our followers and listeners in a minute. But we want to start with the topic and really just get a hook in here. And this topic for this podcast is fatigue. It's fatigue. It's something that affects the entire rotorcraft industry in almost every way. from military pilots to commercial pilots to people flying out to oil rigs, to EMS, to HEMS, to law enforcement, search and rescue. If you're flying at night on odd hours, whether you're a pilot or a crew member, this podcast is for you because this topic is something you deal with every day that you're working, even on your days off, which, I mean, even on days off, you're dealing with this topic. So we're going to take a deep dive into fatigue. And to start, we're going to go around the horn and just ask each panelist here, Mike, why are we talking about fatigue tonight?
Man, that's a great question. And I think that this is something that we can all relate to every single day, just like you said. Like, I feel like I don't have a day off anymore, right? But even when I do go to work, I'm waking up in the morning, I'm getting myself ready, and I'm just like, man, I am exhausted and not feeling this. And I've noticed that I'm not the only one. And I think that, for the past couple of years, I've been doing a bit of an assessment of what our frat scores are for the entire program. And I've noticed that doing those frat scores, one of the common things is just as an industry, as a program, how tired we are. And I think that we're already going into this with that certain level of fatigue already. And then when we add in the extra stressors of this job and doing it at nighttime and waking up at 3:00 in the morning and having to be our best every single time we go out the door, it's not an easy task and it's a lot of pressure to do that. But I mean, I know for me personally, I feel tired. I'm exhausted most days, especially now taking on a new role. Life has been absolutely crazy, but loving every minute of it. It's just that it's a lot, and I think that is shared across the industry. I don't care what seat you're sitting in the helicopter. I think that we can all relate to this, and I feel it's such an important topic because it's something that for the longest time I think we couldn't talk about.
Yes, and we're going to get into that, how that's changed, kind of like the mental wellness side of things, how that's
absolutely
changed. It's the same thing with fatigue, and it's part of the mental wellness thing. It's a big part of it.
100%.
Blake, why are we talking about fatigue?
Because I'm tired.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm tired. And you know what? Like, I taught all day today. It's like perfect, right? And you brought up such a good point. I feel like if I'm tired, you're tired. Mike's tired. Woody, you're probably tired. You're like, we're all tired, right? Because we don't like. When we get into this field and when we do this profession, there's all these other aspects that come with it, and especially when you do it for a long period of time. The first few years, that they're there. You're learning a lot. Like, you're tired, but I think you mask it with like that adrenaline, and you're learning so much, and there's a lot that's coming at you. But then over time, it kind of sets in, and then it's fatigue, and I think that if I'm tired, many of us, that this is not our only role, within either that organization, and we have other commitments. Yeah. I know when I started, I didn't have a family. It was just me. It was only me. That's changed in 13 years. I now have a family. I have a stepdaughter. I have 2 dogs. I have a wife, and I also do a lot of teaching, and there's so many people that are listening that are so actively involved. Mike's got a new role. He has to hire, he has to teach, he has to do so many other things, and also be a clinician. And I think a lot of us wear many different hats, and I think we don't ever really take them off. There's always a hat that's on at some point, and it really becomes our new normal. And you mentioned days off. I'm not really sure what those are. They sound really cool.
They do, don't they?
I'd love to have one. They sound great.
Very well stated, Blake. I love that you brought in it's not just the work responsibilities, that affect this topic. It's what you do when you leave work, going to soccer games and ballet lessons and hockey practice at 0600, and it's that stuff too that affects it affects you when you come back to work. Teaching, boy, I can relate to that, man. On so many days off, I would leave and go teach for 2-3 days, travel, come back, go right back to work. Those were my 3 days off. weren't days off. So
No.
really good point, Blake. And we'll deeper dive into that shortly. But Woody, why are we talking about fatigue?
So I'm doing it from a happy position of retirement, but it's my very last flying job of 40 years of flying. 5 years of that last was 5 years flying for Native Air in Arizona in an Airstar. And it was probably one of the most significant jobs I've had, including, flying jets all over the world and all that. But it was there that I really came up against this whole issue of these late night flights into hostile terrain, and thinking to myself, you know better than this. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And there were deep challenges to that. And when you tried to share it with the other pilots, it was amazing the differences in how they reacted. And basically behind the mask, which took various forms, they were all struggling with it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was, I think, one of the most significant experiences of my entire life, trying to figure out how to beyond my game in super challenging flying circumstances, and realizing that I just hadn't had enough rest.
Yeah. So true. And like we said, everybody on this panel knows exactly what you're talking about. Everybody that's worked shift work knows exactly what you're talking about. And that's what I'd like to answer that question by saying, I think this is important to talk about because things need to change. And they have, and we'll discuss how that's changed over time, but it needs to continue to change and be looked at in a different way, because this is serious stuff. Public safety aviation, particularly, you're getting called to do a mission middle of the night. Your body is not agreeing with that, but you're going. And you're going, and you have, like you said, Blake, you got to be 100%, no matter which position you're in. You can't. There's no mulligans. There's no. Can I get another shot at that approach? Can I get another shot at that IV I just put in there? And there's none of that.
Exactly.
It's you got to get it right the first time, and that's hard enough under the best conditions. But when you're tired and fatigued, and things aren't working quite right, it just exaggerates all of it. So my big thing is that I want to talk to all of us need to talk today about the changes and the improvements that we have made and how it needs to continue. I can speak from the law enforcement side that this is looked at in a variety of ways, depending on the unit, because there are law enforcement agencies out there that do work a 24-hour shift. And, they do, and they do sleep. It's like a firehouse, kind of thing. But there's still, I would say, most that go in for an 8-hour or a 10-hour shift, and then they go home, and there's different shifts, and fatigue is just not even talked about. Or it's just, you work
under the rug.
Yeah, you work 11 at night till 7 in the morning. Okay,
Cool.
Just do it. And well, what about fatigue? What about it? You're a cop, and that's kind of the attitude. And so that's why I think this is one of the reasons why this is important to me, because I saw this firsthand, where it was not just frowned upon, but there were people that were hostile about sleeping on duty as a cop, a pilot or TFO after you landed at 0400 and just closing your eyes in a chair was like, what are you doing? It's like that needs to change. And it is, in some places, but, so that's the topic, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about fatigue and all aspects. There's a lot of different angles here. But let's start with this before we go to the backgrounds of everybody. Let's start with this. There's a saying, you've all heard it. I've heard it. It is not if, but when your unit will have an incident or accident with fatigue being a contributing factor. That's true in aviation, period. but certainly in public service aviation. It is not if, it's when. You're going to have an incident or accident where fatigue's a contributing factor. Woody, what do you think about that saying? What is that? What hits you when you hear that?
Well, it's the bald truth,
Yeah.
Jack. And, companies and agencies, like air medical companies and law enforcement agencies are intent on presenting an external image of everything's fine all the time. There are no problems. We have everything under control, and they don't. And I think the as you get into that as a crew member, and early on you realize this is not right. I mean, this is crazy. But then you deal with it because that's the schedule, and it's non-negotiable. And even though it's dangerous, you show up and do it.
Yeah.
And I think we all have had to just deal with that and realize that our employers they're not going to talk about it. They are not going to talk about it. And I think it's darkly humorous in the air medical business that every air medical crew member knows this is an ongoing crisis, and the companies go like, everything's fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I think right there, guys, that's the dilemma that we've all lived with. And I mean, if the obvious answer is, well, what do we do about it? Well, none of us can do anything about it. We're in roles where we're serving, and we all notice when our friends get promoted out, then when you talk to them about them, they're kind of give you that smile. Well, I'm not anymore, so tough on you.
Yeah.
Well,
Is that why you've had that smirk on your face since we started this podcast?
Yeah, that's it.
But in my long, varied career in aviation, it's the only venue I've ever been where what I viewed as a critical situation was swept under the rug, and is swept under the rug. And when you look at it, you think there's a morbid curiosity. Why does this happen? So,
Yep.
I guess, we've all seen the companies say, well, we've made great improvements. And you think, like what?
Yeah.
And,
Did we? Did we really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess I missed that meeting. But, so I guess in truth, part of this subject is, if we've made improvements, what are they? And in fact, do they make any difference? I mean, if you look at things like NVGs, they did improve it. And companies have, the companies made, I was in that period when we transitioned to goggles, and our employer and all people in the industry, this is this huge breakthrough. And I thought, it's better than what we had before, but it's not a huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
In real life. And I think as we go along and talk about our various personal struggles to try to help the problem, it's always it kind of circles back to that. Oh yeah, well and it's really not a problem.
Yeah, it does. Blake, what is that? If it's not if, but when phrase, what jumps into your head when you hear that?
Thanks to our sponsor, Copter Safety. Based in Finland, Copter Safety is the leading, globally approved simulator training center. They provide a full range of courses for AW139, AW169, H125, and H145 pilots. Customize your special missions training with realistic visuals and specialized instructors. Stay one step ahead of reality with Copter Safety.
I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is, why hasn't it happened to me yet?
Yeah.
Am I doing something right, or am I lucky?
Yeah.
Or is it both? I want to say that I'm doing things right.
Yeah.
But as we were talking about this, I had this thought, and just throwing this out there as strictly an analogy, right? Just hypothetical. If your house caught fire, or somebody, hypothetically, a house caught fire, and you did everything right. You got out, you called the authorities, you called 911, and it either someone didn't show up, or it took them like 20 minutes to show up. And if you were to ask, hey, what took so long? And if the answer that you got was, the crew was pretty tired, they weren't able to get to that fire.
Yeah.
And I say that because that's just the honest truth of, as we're talking about this, of obviously that's not the answer anybody wants to hear, right? Like, that's
Nope.
why we are here to do this job and to serve, right? But how, and to think about that statement, it's not if, but when. Okay. So it took 20 minutes for someone to get there and assist with this house fire, right? But I don't know. It's such a really hard balance, because we are, those of us in this field, and this will definitely cross over into not just, I think, the pre-hospital realm. I think this, from a medical perspective, this carries over into hospital. It carries into other various forms of transport, just as much as this dovetails into law enforcement and even military,
Yes.
So how do we balance it? How do we balance being ready and having crews be ready to respond when they're called, but also just not be fatigued, right? But it's public service, right? I'm a public servant, right? I do these things to serve my community. So when I think about that, I like to think that I'm doing things right. And I would like to think that if it hasn't happened to me yet, I would like to think that I can only control the things that I can control. So I'm going to do the best that I can. And outside of those factors that I can't control, I would like to think that I am doing the best to show up to my shift well rested.
Right.
Well, we already know that's a strike one, because I just talked about it. Like, that ain't happening, right? Did I eat well? No, I'm drinking a soda right now. I'm having a Zen and a coffee in the morning just to give my butt up and rolling, right? So what am I really doing as I'm showing up when I'm called, right? And I'm there, but am I really being the best that I can for my patients, and not only my patients, but my fellow crew members? Am I being the best lookout when I'm up front with the pilot? Am I being the best at backing up my crew member because I'm showing up tired? Or maybe my mind is just maybe I had an argument with my wife, or we had a disagreement, or I'm just coming in and I'm angry about something, and that carries over. Or maybe there's a call. And I think all of us can relive this. There was a call that's just eating at us, that it didn't sit well, and that just carries over. So yeah, it's not if, but when. I don't know. When's it going to happen? Will I be lucky? Am I doing things right? So I don't know. And I think about that, because I want to be that person that, when is called upon to do my job, that I'm there to do it, and I'm going to do it well, and I'm going to do it to the absolute 100% expectation that I signed up for. I don't know. I want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly, but I think that as we talk about this further, I think we can find some ways. I don't know that we're going to find all the answers, and maybe we're going to come up with way more questions than even, answers.
I agree.
But maybe we steer it in the direction of, like, we should have some difficult conversations with ourselves as not only public servants, responders, but whether you work in a hospital or whether you work in overnight shift work at a factory, everywhere, everybody's fatigued. And maybe we can come up with ways to just bring awareness to, if I speak up, maybe someone can help step into that place when I'm tired. Maybe there's someone that can fill that role of when someone's called, that they don't have to wait 20 minutes for someone to show up and, put their house out that was on fire,
That's good, Blake. Good stuff in there. Mike, same phrase, same question. What's your reaction when you hear that, for you personally?
So I think
in some regards, I have two reactions. My first one is anger. I've lost too many friends in this industry, too many people that I have been close with, too many colleagues, and it's from across the country. And it doesn't, it shouldn't, and it doesn't get any easier. And I don't, I can't say that all of these factors or all these instances have been related to fatigue. Some may have been, some may not have been. But it's just a hard pill for me to swallow. And I think of it in, the other aspect of it is I look at it from, we plan for this in every other aspect of what we do. If I'm going out for a critical patient, I'm constantly planning for when things are going to go wrong, right? Like, I'm constantly wondering, when are their hemodynamics going to change? When are they, it's not a matter of if they're going to have a problem, it's when they're going to have a problem. And am I going to be ready for that? So why do I not always plan for the same thing in my own life and the things that I'm doing?
Yeah.
Right. And then the other part of it that I look at is like, Murphy's alive and well.
Oh yeah, he is.
And I always say, if I ever meet him in a dark alley with no witnesses,
yes, I'll be with you. I'll get the shovel and the lime.
It's like we just this job is inherently dangerous. We get that. We know that, right? I don't think anybody enters into this job not recognizing that this is a dangerous career.
Yep.
And I think that that's an important piece of this puzzle, because we all accept that there is some risk involved in it. But are we always doing everything we can to avoid the when? We know there's the if, but are we always doing what we can to avoid the when? And I think that as an industry, as a program, as an individual, there are things that we can all do that are going to prevent that when, and we can do a much better job at doing it if we start having conversations like this. And that's what we're here for. Yeah. At the end of the day, is being able to have that conversation. And Blake, I agree with you. We may walk away from this conversation having more questions than answers, but this is the start of where this needs to go, because we need to start having these open and honest conversations, because if we don't, we're going to continue losing colleagues and friends and family in instances like this.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that you brought that up, Mike. The friends that you have lost and the colleagues and people in your industry that you've never even met, but they're in your industry and it means something to you to lose them. And fatigue is one of those things that you will probably never know if, you just won't know if it was truly a factor in that. Sometimes it does come out because of circumstances or something, a witness or something, but most times you just wonder. Right? You don't know it. You just wonder. I wonder if, that was a long shift. They had multiple calls that night. I wonder if that was a contributing factor, even though the NTSB comes out with the report and says, oh, it was this that failed. This failed and they, weather or something. Well, did fatigue affect the decision-making to get into that weather? That's what's so frustrating about fatigue. We don't know so much. There's so much we don't know. That's a better way to put it. There's so much that we do not know about this topic, and it could be a factor more often than we even realize.
And I think that's the key, though, Jack, is that we'll never know how much it truly affects some of these things, but it's the fact that, can we raise the awareness about it? Can we raise that individual or that crew awareness of how fatigued they may be, to give them solutions to make better decisions in that moment, better tools to make the decisions in that moment? And can we learn from each other in that way? And I think that's really where the key is with all of this.
Well, I got to jump in on that, Mike. I think that so many of these conversations, we're sort of looking for global solutions. There just are not. Our employers aren't going to change what we do. They're not going to do anything for us. And so I mean, I think your point you just brought up, it's up to us to figure out any kind of mitigating circumstance that's going to save us, all of us, and try to share that and integrate it into whatever we're doing, integrate it into our working lives.
Yeah.
You know,
true.
when so if we know that fatigue is I wonder how much that that really played into it. I could speak for myself, like 3 things today that 100%, like how tired I was today, that absolutely played into decisions I either made or did not make today. Right. So let me throw out like the medical aspect, right? This is no secret. Not a neurosurgeon. Never have been, never will be, never claim to be, right? But like what happens to those like neurosurgical intense cases that are like 30-hour operations, right? Like does that neurosurgeon participate actively for that entire process? Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen one all the way through. I've seen some documentaries, I've seen some things. It looks like they do. So how would such a complicated surgical procedure, right? Some of these things that are so intense, it's a whole team of providers, physicians, nurses, techs. There's such a huge support system, right, for something that can be insanely complex, for some type of intense procedure, right? And neuro is just what I was throwing out there, right? It could be maybe something cardiovascular, whatever it is. But either way, like my point is if there's a known inherent, like very tough task, very tough procedure that's going to require everybody to be at their top, if they plan, they rehearse, they practice, they do so many things, they do training, right? And Mike, you said it. It's not when the patient takes that dive. So, I mean, that's the way that we look at things. And how are we prepared? Well, we train for it. We do recurrent trainings. We do all these things. For you guys as pilots, like, how do I know that if I have an engine failure that I'm going to be able to, follow the proper procedure and do an auto rotation? Well, you train for it. You do all those things. But Mike, you brought out the best question. Why the hell do I not prepare like, why do I get it so wrong in my everyday life, like not at work? Right. Yeah. And maybe wrong isn't like the best word. Maybe it's why do I do it so well at work or prepare for it? But then maybe I kind of fall short other places.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And why does that happen? Is it just because that I am so tired that I'm like, you know what? Do I have to then like consciously make decisions on where my attention is going to be more focused than at other times, right? If I'm doing a 24-hour shift, I know when the sun's up, I'm great. And everybody I work with will attest, I am Cinderella. Soon as midnight hits, outfit changes.
I really hope that you have a helmet tag with that on it.
Cinderella.
That needs to be your new call sign.
I don't look as good as she did in the dress, but it fits.
Oh, that's great.
But the reality is like, why? Because I'm tired, because like we do so much during the day, right? So we do a lot of things, but we like our bodies just, all of us, the human beings, like we're not meant to be awake.
That's right.
Now there are those few people that have, been on night shift for their entire careers, and some people can absolutely thrive that way. God bless you. I give you all the credit in the world. If you're that night shifter for like, many, many years and you can make that happen, that's so wonderful. I wish I had that. I like nighttime. It's cooler outside. Yeah. It's not as bright. There's not as many people. And we all know way more interesting things happen at night. But I'm also really tired at night. So that fatigue aspect, like I don't know. I think that question really is like, what are all these things that are doing that are influencing? Do I get to consciously decide then like where I can spend my time and focus, and does it lack elsewhere? And then how safe am I being if that's really that practice?
Well, I love that you brought that up. A couple things that you brought up, Blake, I want to touch on from my perspective on this question. you mentioned there's some people that can just work that night shift, and it doesn't, they're just do it their whole careers. I was one of those. And I don't think I was any better at it. I mean, I had the same issues. I just liked it so much that I gutted it out. And when I was on it for long periods of time, does it get a little easier? It does. But it doesn't solve all the problems because you have days off, and that just throws a wrench in everything. And now you got to live your life and you got to go to your kid's hockey game. It throws a wrench in everything. So, which brings me to something that jumped out at me. You said, I wrote it down, difficult conversation with ourselves. We need to have a difficult conversation with ourselves. I've had that conversation with myself. I had it. And I will tell you that I can't tell you the date, but I can tell you it was a month before I stopped working graveyard shifts, because piloting a helicopter with a tactical flight officer over the city of Los Angeles at 03:30, and all of a sudden, boom, I nodded out. And you catch yourself. We've all done that in our cars at some point, I'm sure. Well, I did it at 600 feet. And
not terrifying.
It was, oh my God, it was terrifying. And it was very short, very brief. I came right out of it. My partner just went, "You all right?" I said, "I am now," because I've got an adrenaline push because it just scared the crap out of me. I can tell you who it was. I remember the TFO. It was Brian Shipstead. And he said, "Are you all right?" I said, "No, man, I got a full day's sleep today. That was one of the best sleeps I've had in a long time. Didn't matter. For whatever reason, my body said, I've had enough of this." And a lot of it has to do with age too. And that's the night I went, this is a younger pilot's game to work this shift. And I need not to do this. I need to, because I could choose. I was lucky. We had a system. LAPD is really good with shift work. You pick the watch you want to go on, and you stay on that shift until you get bumped off of it. And depending on the situation, sometimes you can stay on a shift for 6, 8 months, even a year, without getting bumped off of it, especially on night watch graveyard shift, because so many people avoid it like the plague. I mean, where they go, absolutely not. If I have a choice, I am never working that shift. Great. I love that shift. And I loved it for the same reasons that you mentioned, Blake.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
It's cooler. The action on police work is all between 2000 and 0400. I mean, all the good stuff.
Are there good stuff? When's all the cool stuff happen? It's dark out.
Yes. I mean, it's action. I worked it in K9 my whole time in K9, 5 years straight. Worked graveyard. Is 2000 to 04 was my K9 time, and then I went right to air support, and I stayed on graveyards. And so I love the difficult conversation with ourselves line that you brought up. I had that conversation with myself. I had it with my partner, because Brian and I were friends, and I could confide. I said, "Man, I am sorry about that. I mean, I apologize." And I had it with my spouse. I said, "Hey, Tracy, enough of this. I gotta go to days for a while, and not do this anymore. I can't do it. I want to do it, but I can't." That was a challenging thing after working so much of that shift over 25 plus years at that point to get rid of that. But in hindsight, I am thankful I had that conversation. I am thankful I went in and did something about it and didn't go back to that shift. It just wasn't, I didn't want to put anybody at risk, including myself, but my partner, the people I'm flying over,
right?
So really, really good. Have that difficult conversation with yourself. Boy, oh boy, that's going to be a very powerful line that people are going to take away from this podcast today, I believe. because it hit me. It hit me hard. Great. Man, 4 good perspectives, on this topic already. But we're going to shift gears quickly before we get back to kick into deeper fatigue. And, the Hangar Z audience knows who I am. The Valor Flight Crew podcast audience knows who Mike and Blake are. But we're going to each give our background. And if you listen to the helicopter podcast with Halsey Schreider, you've seen Woody on his podcast. So you might know about Woody. But we're going to each give quick backgrounds of our flying backgrounds and how it relates to this topic. Let's start with you, Mike. Tell us about yourself a little bit and how, how your background and experience kicks you into this situation where fatigue is something that it's important to talk about.
I started in EMS back in the days where it was still known as earned money sleeping.
I swear to God, I've never heard that. That is.
I was back when I was 17. Yeah. It was a number of years ago. And now I've been in healthcare now for 27 years, 27 Jeez. Crazy years. Started off in EMS, ended up putting myself through nursing school, and kind of fell in love with medicine. I've been obsessed with helicopters, though even longer than that. Since I've been about 5 years old, I've been obsessed with helicopters. And so it was just always a goal once I started in medicine to be flying by the time I turned 30. And I made that goal, I think, by about 2 months. So that worked out well in my favor there, but it was always goals to have. And I haven't looked back since. I've really been enjoying the flight world. I've been flying now altogether for just over 14 years for various companies, and really I enjoy the autonomy. I enjoy the responsibility. I enjoy the views. Not going to lie, it's a great office view, but it's just been something that, every single day I feel absolutely blessed to be able to do this job. And it's a privilege and an honor to be able to practice critical care medicine and do it at 3,000 feet and make the difference that we can for each of those patients that we encounter.
Great stuff. Lots of experience there talking, Mike. Wow. Good stuff. Blake, tell the audience who Blake Schreider is.
My story is not as cool as Mike's. He did the cool thing and started when he knew what he wanted to do and he was 17. I was just happy that I found matching pants and a shirt like when I got to the end of high school, that I felt that I actually looked decent. But no, I got into this field kind of by accident, and just kind of trying to figure out how to get a cool government job. And I started in EMS 20 years ago. I was the young age of 23. So if you're good at math, you know my age. And then it just kind of blossomed from there. I kind of always I liked science and medicine and stuff, but I never really kind of pictured myself as being a paramedic. I just thought driving an ambulance was really cool and you got paid pretty good. Boy, was I wrong on both those parts. Mike said earn money sleeping. It was like you earn some money sleeping, but I will say since then, things have obviously gotten a lot better. But yeah, I started off as a EMT, went to paramedic school, and just really just blossomed from there. And I always saw the helicopter come in, the flight crew. I was obsessed. It was really the onesie that did it for me. Thought it looked really cool. Yeah. The red, white, and blue onesie, super awesome. Boy. And then, yeah, I just did things to really kind of take extra classes and learn, and really got lucky and blessed to get a spot. And I've been flying for 13 years now, and met up with Mike and the whole Echo crew and team, started being able to help instruct. And it's just, no pun intended, taken off. From there.
I wish I had the rim shot button like John has. I don't have that button. I know. John has. Actually, the panel is down in a suitcase waiting to get back to John. I have no excuse. I should have that panel up there to press that button.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, that's just kind of where it's been. And I've just really had a passion, and I love having these conversations. I like Mike said, I feel truly blessed to do this. And I just want this industry to be safer and better. And I want to see more people not only have the same success that I've had. It's an incredible job and it's super cool. And I want it to be I want that longevity to be there. I want people to be able to work hard, get to this point, and then you get to run with it, and then you can really kind of give back and make it better. So that's kind of my hope. And yeah, here I am
Outstanding.
on a podcast.
Outstanding. Well, here you are for sure. And you're doing just what your goal is there. Both you, Mike and Blake, you are making a difference in your industry. I was thrilled to be able to witness that firsthand at Echo last year in Louisville and see the reaction of people to the two of you. And boy, they just love you guys. And I know why. I mean, you're doing a great job with the podcast and sharing information, bringing on great guests to talk about a wide variety of topics in that industry. And so mission accomplished, Blake.
Well, we're learning from you guys. So, but thank you. We are. You guys are like legends in this. We're babies.
I'll tell you that's very kind, but John and I feel very lucky. We talk about it all the time, how grateful we are at bringing on people that just we learned so much. You guys have found that too. We've talked about it on the podcast with you guys, where we've joined up and about, guests and how they affect us and the things you learn. And, I think about like Dr. Tanya Glenn, I think about her almost daily with something that she has said on the podcast. And we're going to talk about Tanya more here in a minute, because she just wrote an article about sleep under stress is the title. We're going to talk about her article that's in Vertical in a minute. But before we get there, Woody, you've got a long career, but give us the Reader's Digest of your career, because we'd be here all day with Woody for this. He's done so much stuff.
I think he just called you old.
No, I didn't. See, Woody knows I don't call him old. He knows that. He's experienced and wise. Woody, tell our audience about you.
Well, I started flying when I was a teenager. And by the time I was instructing at 19, and then I got aeronautical engineering degree, went to work for Boeing Flight Test, which was my dream job. And Boeing is, of course, like working for the governments. And I discovered that about 5 years into it and thought, okay, I gotta move on here. I'll never slow down to these guys. And then rattled around aviation, ended up flying corporate jets and helicopters fairly early on. And it's been a mix of those disciplines for all the years since then. In the mid 80s, I knew some people at UCLA, and MedStar program was going through a minor crisis, and the guy who was in charge of it was Dr. Morgan, who was the head of the emergency services division of the medical center. And he said, do you know anything about aeromedical flying? And I said, no, it's flying. And he said, that's good enough. We got to do something different here. And so I took over the MedStar program and transitioned it from using a vendor helicopter and vendor pilots to leasing a helicopter and having the pilots, the employees of the medical center. And so we acquired a Bell 222 and got it configured for us and ran that program. It was great for about 6 years. And so the thing that killed it was noise, because UCLA Medical Center is in the center of one of the most posh residential areas in all of Southern California.
Yeah.
And those people really didn't like having that noisy helicopter rattle over their houses at 3:00 in the morning. And so they canceled. One day they canceled the program. And all the nurses had come from the ER, so it was easy for them. We had 4 pilots in the Learjet and 4 in the helicopter, and of course we were all on the street. They gave us a nice severance, but I ended up in Michigan flying a 412 for care flight for a while, and then ended up back in the jet business until late in my career, when I got talked into going to work for Native Air by a buddy of mine who had gone to work there, and he said, "Hey, this is great. You ought to try this." And I thought, why not? And that was 5 years of a totally different experience for me. So, there I was out there in this A-Star getting dragged out of bed at 3:00 in the morning and going to halfway to Albuquerque. And of course, you can imagine down in that country at 3:00 in the morning, once you leave the lights of Phoenix, there aren't any lights till you get to Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And I thought, the whole 5 years, I thought, what am I doing? Why am I out here? I know better. But I stayed with it because I loved the job. I loved what we were doing. We had so many missions that were memorable.
Mhm.
And so I just stayed with it and accumulated a lot of pretty hairy experiences in the process, which you guys all know about. And from the book, where you know about the hairiest ones. But I think it was maybe one of the most significant, that 5 years was maybe one of the most significant periods in my life in terms of the challenges that never went away. I mean, when you showed up for a shift, this is what you were going to do. And which is, kind of what brought us all together here. We're all dealing with that challenge and knowing, as we've all agreed, it's not ever going to get any better. And so the only choice we have is to figure out internal disciplines, sharing with our partners to hopefully minimize the exposure to hazard.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think it's one of the most fascinating experiences. It certainly was one of the most fascinating experiences in my entire career in terms of human factors. And I started writing for Vertical right when Mike Reno started the magazine, and on and off had been working with Vertical ever since then. Anyway, I'm happy and honored to be here with you guys to try to bring the pilot perspective, EMS pilot perspective, into what is a situation we all know is tough. It's just tough.
Yeah.
And it's never going to get any better. And so we have these constant conversations about, well, what are we going to do? And the answer is, we're going to somehow have to figure out how to fly and operate safely and take care of patients. I think it's a fascinating thing that we all know this is a big problem. We all know there isn't anything we can do about it, and yet it's that's the way it's always going to be. The Europeans fly EMS in such a different way. They fly EC-145s, two-pilot IFR, and so for them, they don't care. They're just like a jet charter company. They fly night or day, it doesn't matter. They have a very structured set of rules of how they do it. They figure out how to, do an IFR departure and then figure out how to do an approach to somewhere close to the scene and either work their way over to the scene or land somewhere and ambulance brings them the patient. And they've got it down. It's an airline.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, well, so will we ever have that in this country? No, we won't.
Yeah.
The majority of this business is going to continue to be community-based flying. So I think, I think it's incumbent on us to continue to have these conversations in every venue we can find. And keep you keep the awareness up that this is, hey guys, this is not normal. This is not a normal existence. It is fraught with challenges that we have to meet every day, every night, if we're going to stay alive. It's that simple. It's not, well, how do we stay happy in our job? It's how do we stay alive? And I mean, that's a much more fundamental pursuit when you think about it.
Yeah.
I'm happy if I'm alive, so I'm good with that. If I can find a way to do it, stay safe and be alive, I think that would keep me happy.
when you think about it, we keep circling back around in this dialogue and then what we're talking about. The only possible mitigating circumstance that we can bring to this is we have to have a constant awareness that we're living on the edge, and that we have to depend on our own skills and discipline to make that flight at 3:00 in the morning work out right for us and the patient.
Another important takeaway right there. That is what you just said, Woody, is so important. We have to depend on ourselves. It's not going to be the boss. It's not going to be the captain. It's not going to be, the owner. It comes down to us. Are we ready? Are we prepared for this? Is our fatigue affecting us in a way that is not good? We have to police ourselves and work on it individually, because you're right. It's not going to come from outside or the top. They just don't like this topic.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
How many of your supervisors are like, hey, did you nap today?
Yeah.
I haven't seen you nap. I need you to go take a nap for like an hour and a half before you come back and get your TPS reports in.
Exactly.
Oh, nobody's saying that.
No, nobody says that. That's funny. What do you brushed on it, and we're not going to let you off the hook here. You brushed on, well, it's in the book. Well, what book is that? It means that Woody McClendon is a author. Tell us about the book. Mike held it up because we have.
I'm not going to talk about the book.
Well,
we all
no,
have copies.
What's that?
We all have it.
There's no way to get it, so why talk about it?
But the point is,
yeah,
we have it. So, but you authored a book about your wisdom and your experiences, and that's important. That's important that it was probably good therapy for you to write all that down too, wasn't it?
Wisdom is not a word that's in that book.
Well, it's something I took from the book is that you have wisdom.
Wisdom is not part of the story.
Well, thanks for that, Woody.
I hope that makes sense. I trust that makes sense to you guys. It's, I think that's the reason we're here right now, is to have an exercise in upping the awareness of our community, so that we realize this is an unusual thing we do.
Yeah.
And it demands that we all be, the pilots in particular. I mean, you guys are always on your game. I mean, I've admired med crews for years about, you think, God, these guys are taking somebody that's pretty much dead and they're delivering them to a trauma center in good shape. And doing it in the back of a helicopter. My God, it's amazing. You can never make enough. You can never tell enough about that and what you guys do.
Yep.
I think the pilot's job is pretty simple. Just don't kill anybody and get them there.
Yeah.
So,
that's insanely humbling, Woody, for you to say that. But I think the fact that you wrote a book and you say wisdom isn't in the book, but I truly believe that just reading it alone and the fact that you were able to take all the experience that you've had and take those stories and those things, I guarantee you, thank you for sending a copy. And two, I know I'm going to learn something.
Yep.
And you know what? Like I always say that I lead by like, hey, I'll show you kind of what not to do. Like, hey, this didn't work out well. Don't do that. Right.
Yeah.
So I know that for a fact that, I think it's awesome that not only were you able to take the years of experience, and I'm calling you experienced, that you were able to put pen to paper and get the thoughts out there. And I'm very excited to start reading it. I have one book to finish. I have just a couple chapters, and then I will be starting yours. And I think it's great to give back to this industry. And I give a lot of kudos to pilots. Imagine if you had to not only do medical stuff, but then also pilot. Like if you had to do all that, you need to go fly there, then go take care of the patient. Like you guys do a hell of a lot, and you do it well. I think you're better weather forecasters than some of the weather forecasters
yes.
out there.
Oh, yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Zero question about that.
And the training that you guys get is insane.
Yeah. So I'm last of the four. I'll just give a quick thumbnail and just say that I spent 36 plus years in law enforcement. 31 of that was with LAPD. 19 of that was at Air Support Division versus a tactical flight officer, chief TFO for a short time, and then a pilot for my last 16 years on the job. And it was Air Support was the greatest place. I mean, you can't beat it, both as a TFO and as a pilot. Wonderful experience. Got to do a lot of really cool stuff, and got to travel a little bit with a class that I taught, and I started teaching, kind of like you guys, Blake, you were just doing it today. I can relate to that. I did a lot of that over the years, and the best thing about teaching over those years was meeting incredible people from other agencies and learning about how they did things, what they did, what equipment they used, and creating friendships that would have never happened if I wasn't teaching. I thought of that when you were talking of how wonderful that's been. I taught a class for about 26 years called Apprehending Fleeing Suspects. This year is my last year doing that. Matter of fact, likely to be the very last class I do is going to be at Echo in Philadelphia in September.
Last one?
Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to do it with Clay Lacey. We're doing a 2-day, and that's probably going to be it. There's one other one that might come up. Don't want to even talk about because I don't want to do anymore, but I might have to for certain reasons.
Twist your arm a little bit.
Yeah, I might have to. It's a volunteer one, and that I care about, and it might come up. If asked, I might go. But Echo is going to be scheduled wise. That's going to be the last one. So anyway, I just take that experience of flying and spending a lot of time on graveyard shift during that 31 years in LA. I mean, in patrol, that's where I spent my time. In canine, 5 years straight, and then a bunch of my 19 years, I think over half of it was on graveyards. And so that's the perspective I'm coming from on the topic that we're talking about today. And we'll get into more of that as we go along here. But thanks for the backgrounds. I think that's important for our listeners to hear. So let's talk about this. How does fatigue influence readiness? Mike, why don't you capture that one?
Yeah, I think this is multifaceted in so many routes, and I'm going to take it from the med crew perspective and just from my own experiences in life. And I look back at, there's those days that I wake up and maybe I don't get an opportunity to get my coffee before I, take that 20-minute drive into work. And I get there and I'm just not feeling it for the day. And I go through a morning brief and I'm like, man, I'm exhausted. And I might do a half-assed check of my gear. I was here 2 days ago. It's fine. There's no big deal. They only had one flight since then. Not a problem. And I don't put myself in this right mindset to actually go out there and not only take care of patients, but take care of my team and be ready to go. And I think that just carries over, when we talk about fatigue, it affects every single thing that you do when you're on shift, when you're on your way to work, when you leave after the end of your shift. And, from we can talk about the scientific aspect of it, right? Like how it slows down your ability to work under pressure. You fall off that human performance curve. It slows down your ability to react to those situations that you're dealing with, to those patient changes that are happening in front of you. It slows down your awareness to all of those things that are happening around you. So certainly there's a scientific to it, but when I'm just tired, my body just doesn't want it. Like I can't get into it. And then when you compound that with having to get up in the middle of the night when it's 4:00 in the morning, and my partners will tell you time and time again, if I wake up hungry and tired, look out. Those two factors together, it does not end well for anyone. But
Wait, so I'm not the only Cinderella?
Ooh.
Is that what you're kind of saying?
We're not calling me that. I mean, all right, maybe my partners probably would. They would probably agree with me on that. They carry emergency Scooby snacks for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
It's not for them.
Important.
It's for Mike.
Pretty much. That is exactly the fact. But it slows down everything, and it makes me feel like I am, and I think at times I don't realize it, but it gets me to the point physically where I don't function. Things don't flow right. Things don't move right. I can't, my what normally should take me 3 seconds to do something is now taking me 3 minutes to accomplish. Or I'm trying to do something and start an IV, which is on a patient that I should have no issues getting an IV on, and it's just not going well. It's not coordinated. It's not moving. Things just aren't happening, and then that frustrates me even more.
Yeah.
And it takes me down this like spiral, and I can all relate it back to the fact that I'm walking into work feeling like I just need to go back to bed because I did not sleep well, because I was, even though I tried, was up all night, because there's a million other things in life going on, and it just affects every aspect. And I don't know. I hate the way I feel when I'm tired, and I can't get out of my own way sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a good time to mention this, that, just in America tonight, there will be police officers working graveyard shift. They'll be working tonight, and there will be thousands of traffic stops nationwide tonight. And many of them will be for suspected drunk driving. And many of those suspected drunk drivers haven't had a drink. It's fatigue. Yeah. It's identical. When you're looking at what you think, oh, look at this guy. This is a drunk. I got a drunk driver right here. Sometimes it is, but many times it's fatigue. Yeah. They are just really tired, and they're weaving, and they're doing the same violations, and it's identical. And I've heard it before about fatigue and drunk driving or blood alcohol levels, but I don't remember the exact thing. If somebody knows, chime in here. But it's the equivalent of having a few drinks. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it that way, of course it's going to affect your readiness. Where you just go, oh yeah, I don't need to check that. It's just like after a few drinks, you don't feel like that. It's really interesting how it affects you physically, mentally, emotionally. All sorts of things go on. But yeah, it's fatigue is a powerful thing. And when you are messing with it and not getting the sleep, not intentionally not getting, you're trying to get it, but you don't get the good sleep. And now you're doing a very important and skilled job, whether it's flying the aircraft or working on a patient, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You could be the person on the fuel truck that's fueling the aircraft at 2 a.m. And if they're not feeling it, that could be a problem. I mean, It doesn't matter what the job is. It just happens that we're on the Valor Flight Crew podcast and the Hangar Z podcast talking about law enforcement and public safety aviation. It doesn't matter what your job is. You could be a truck driver. There's a great example. Truck drivers. Oh my gosh. They
regulated, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're working this shift constantly. And, they deal with this issue as much as we do. And they have to be on their game too, or it could be a catastrophe, and there are accidents, but I think it's important for everybody that's listening to remember that how powerful this is. Blake, anything you want to add about how it influences readiness?
Yeah. As we were talking about it, I was thinking, like, I don't really know what it was like when I felt rested. Like, I haven't really felt rested in a long time.
Wow.
And like, let's be honest, like, how many other people could say that exact same thing? How many nurses have been like, man, I got like 10 hours of sleep. I had 2 days off. I am ready for like 10 patients today. Like, no, I don't think anybody's saying that. Like you,
Guarantee
Jack
you
said,
not.
yeah, it's not happening. But it's in the medical field. It's in truck driving. It's in the shift work, whether you work in a factory. Like, so we know that fatigue is everywhere. We know that everybody's tired. Yeah. Everybody is tired, right? Okay. So if I don't know what it was like to feel rested or well rested, I should say. Then if everyone else is feeling the same way. So if that's the normalization then of like how we're going to show up to work and do things, how do we fix that? And I think when I think of it, like exactly what Mike was saying, how does it affect me being ready? Well, I like a routine. I wake up 4:30 or so in the morning. I set myself up for like, I want my quiet time in the morning. I have my coffee. I do my reading. I do my study. And then I get ready for work. And then I come into work. And then what's the one thing that throws me off is you walk in and those tones drop and you get a flight request. Well, I didn't have time to check the aircraft yet. Well, I hope it was good, because I'm like, well, they were on yesterday. They didn't really have any flights. I'm pretty sure they checked that aircraft real well. But if I was coming in after Mike, no offense, he's like, well, the aircraft didn't move for 2 days, so it's got to be good. I was the last one there 2 days ago, so I know everything is okay. Like, I think it just snowballs, and we have sleep debt. We have like that, I don't know, fatigue debt is really a word, but it culminates and it snowballs. And if it doesn't affect me, maybe my actions will affect the next people coming onto that shift, right? Like you said, the guy fueling the aircraft.
Yeah.
Sure hope he put in the right gas.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think it's so cumulative and all the things that we do. And maybe my fatigue doesn't directly affect me, but maybe it affects the next people coming on shift. That readiness, it's how the cards were. No one needed my help that day, so I got away with it. That's an important
point. It's true in public safety. It's certainly true in law enforcement too, where you're depending on that crew ahead of you. Did they have it together? Did they check this stuff? Did they do a post-flight? And I would imagine, especially in the HEMS world, that all the equipment and all the supplies, it's a flying ambulance, right? I mean, all those supplies, is everything topped off? Is everything there so that if you need it? I mean, that must be a huge thing. And now you're coming in on day watch, and now you're hoping that the people that were overnight and are definitely fatigued, that you're trusting them, right? I mean, you're putting a lot of trust in them to do the right thing and do the procedures and all that.
And I think Woody would attest to this for flying and being around med crews. We know we're a special bunch, but that crew that was up all night. So when day crew comes in and they're all like, hey guys, what's up? And like the overall tone is just like nobody's saying anything. And you're like, rough night. And they're like, yeah, we're up all night. I think I got everything put back.
Yes.
So like you're kind of like, now I got to be on my game a little bit, right?
Yeah. Talk about that, Woody. You have a lot of experience in that area. Talk about that.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Valor Flight Crew Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information. Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Thanks to our sponsor, Copter Safety. Based in Finland, Copter Safety is the leading, globally approved simulator training center. They provide a full range of courses for AW139, AW169, H125, and H145 pilots. Customize your special missions training with realistic visuals and specialized instructors. Stay one step ahead of reality with Copter Safety.
Thanks for joining us on the Valor Flight Crew podcast. As we wrap up this episode, we want to thank you for joining us for this important conversation about fatigue. Fatigue is one of the most significant threats to aviation safety, yet it remains one of the hardest hazards to identify and address. The more we learn about fatigue, its effects, and the ways we can mitigate its impact, the safer our crews, organizations, and missions will be. One of the key takeaways from this discussion is that managing fatigue is not solely the responsibility of the individual air crew member, nor is it solely the responsibility of management. It requires commitment and engagement at every level of an organization, from the newest crew member all the way to executive leadership. Fatigue must be openly discussed, honestly assessed, and continuously evaluated if we are serious about improving safety. But perhaps the most important point that emerged from this conversation is that we cannot depend entirely on those outside the aircraft to manage our fatigue for us. As one of our guests said so perfectly, we all need to have difficult conversations with ourselves. That honest look in the mirror may be the most effective fatigue mitigation tool that we have. It requires self-awareness, humility, and the willingness to acknowledge when we are not at our best. Those conversations are not always easy, but they are essential to protecting ourselves, our crews, and the people we serve. To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us for this important conversation and your continued support of the Valor Plus platform. We hope this episode encourages meaningful discussions within your own organizations and provides practical takeaways that could be applied on your next shift. If you haven't already, be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes, and visit Echo to learn more about the programs and professionals working to advance safety, leadership, and education throughout the aviation community. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Valor Flight Crew podcast, where we continue to highlight the people, stories, and conversations that help move our industry forward.